So you've run into Git's please tell me who you are error message, the fatal error that says Git is unable to auto-detect your email address or your username. Well, don't worry, it's very easy to fix and it's very easy to permanently solve. And in fact, if you just want the quick answer of how to fix this, well, here it is. You just open up a command window or a terminal window and type in git config -- global user.email and then your email address in double quotes and hit enter. Then type in git config -- global user.name and then in double quotes your name, click enter. And then you can just go back to that git commit message you were trying to do that triggered this please tell me who you are Git error, and everything should run swimmingly and you're never going to run into this fatal unable to auto detect email address error ever again. You see, when you're working with Git, every time a commit happens, the commit has to be associated with a username and an email address. So if you go through the history of commits in a Git repository, you can see who did what. And if, I don't know, a manager's in there and they see something really brilliant happening with a Git commit, well, then they can send all sorts of accolades your way. And then, of course, if they find you mess something up, maybe they'll fire you. But there's a yin and a yang with all of these things, but that's the basic idea. And it all stays in your Git repository. Don't worry about giving your email address. It's not going to get you signed up for some newsletter. And in fact, Git's not even tracking the official email address. It's not validating the email address at all. So if you actually put some nonsense in there for your email address, Git would take it. So don't feel too bad about putting your email address in there and fixing this please tell me who you are error. Hi, I'm Cameron McKenzie. I'm the editor-in-chief over at theserverside.com. I have to be one of the world's biggest Git advocates, and whenever people start with Git, they often run into this git config username email address error. And I just want to reproduce this for you and show you how it happens, show you how to fix this error, and also show you where some of this configuration information is stored. You'll notice that the fix is to say git config global. Well, where is this global config stored? Where do you find it? What other scopes are there? There's all questions that commonly arise when you're working with this git config. Now, starting off, I've got a folder here with nothing in it. And I want to create a Git repository here because I've just installed a fresh new instance of Git. This problem usually occurs right after a fresh install. I want to create a Git repository. That's easy to do. I'm just going to right click on this folder and say open git bash here and do the compulsory git init command. You can see that .git folder arise over there, which tells me that everything did in fact work properly. From here, maybe I'll add a new file. So I'm going to add a file called, a file named alpha.txt. And whenever you add a new file to Git, you have to add it to the staging index. So alpha.txt, you've probably done that. And then after you've added a file, you're probably anxious to do a git commit. So git commit -m is the message associated with the commit. You always want a good commit message. And I'll say, hey, this is my first commit after installing a brand new Git installation. I can't wait to see this work. Click enter and boom, all of a sudden we hit this error. Please tell me who you are. Author identity unknown. Fatal, unable to auto detect your email address. So how do we fix this? Well, it's fairly straightforward. We just have to follow the instructions here, right? I just have to say git config -- global user.email and then mail at mccn.com. Now, in fact, that's not my correct email address. My correct email address is mail at mcnz.com. Feel free to give me a shout. But I want to show you how to correct an error just in case that comes up. But now I'll do git config -- global user.name. And my name's Cameron. You can find me on Twitter at CameronMCNZ. So you like this tutorial, why don't you tweet at me, share it, and I'd love to hear you. And now I've configured my name and email address here. I'm going to click Control L just to clear this screen. I'm going to press the up button to get back to my previous commit that failed with that Git error message. I'll click Enter, and boom, everything is working perfectly. So there you go. I have now solved that fatal unable to auto-detect email address error simply by putting my username and email into Git. Now, all of this is stored inside the Git config. You can always do git config -- list, and this gives you a list of all of the crazy things that are configured inside of Git config. And you can see me right there, user.email, mail@mccn.com, and user.name, Cameron, and Cameron MCNZ. That's my Twitter handle. :Q to get me out of there. So that allows you to see all of the Git configuration. Now, you will notice that when we did that git config command that we said global. And in fact, there's a number of scopes in Git with git config. There is global, and global is attached to the user that's logged in. So if you have 3 or 4 people using your computer, each person that configures the global scope can have different values in it, right? So global set at the username. System will apply to anybody that logs into the computer. So for example, if I come over here, I'm just going to go into the installation folder of Git. So you can see right there, that is the folder that I actually installed Git into. Well, _Git is where I installed Git into. You'll notice there's an etc folder there with a file called Git Config. I'm going to open that with my favorite text editor, Notepad++. And in here, well, you can see all of the data that's configured at the global level for Git config. Now my username and email address isn't in there, but there's a few interesting things, one of which is the editor. I've actually changed from using Vim as the default editor for entering text when I do a Git merge or a cherry pick or something like that. Instead, I just use Notepad++. It's a highly recommended setting change. But that doesn't have the information about my global config. So where is the global config? Well, the user account on this machine is called owner. You can see users owner. And if I come in here, you'll notice there's the .git config. Right? The other one was git config. This one's .git config, but it's right there in the user's home directory. And if I double click on that and open it up, notice what I've got in here, mail@mccn.com. And I think if I even go in here and type in git log, yeah, notice you can see that mail@mccn.com. I want to change that, change the email address in Git. My email address is McKenzie, McKenzie. I'm Cameron McKenzie, McKenzie, MCNZ. You get it. Now I click Control Save there, and that will actually update my Git configuration. Next time I do a commit, it's actually that data that will be pulled in. Now again, that is called the global scope for the user, right? Pinned to the user. And I don't know, not too much interesting stuff in there, but it grows over time as you configure your environment. And there's a couple of other places where configuration could be set to. You might want to have a special email address and name for a given repository, right? You might be working on 3 or 4 different projects, and maybe you've got a different domain name, a different email address for each project that you're working on. So you can actually set this up at the the local level as well, right? System, global, and local. And if you do local, that actually is just a configuration file in the .git folder of the repository that you're working in. So I'm going to go into the .git folder there, and there you can see some config. I'm going to open that up with Notepad++, and now we've got some configuration information for this repo. And you know, if I really wanted to, I could actually go in here and maybe copy this and say, hey, I actually want to have some special user settings for just this particular repository, and I'm going to be Mr. McKenzie in here, and I don't know what, maybe my Gmail account, potemkin@gmail.com or something like that. And so there you go. That's how you can set a per repository setting as opposed to having one globally or system wide. So so there you go. And so those are the ins and outs of working with Git Config, and specifically fixing that Git fatal unable to auto detect email address, please tell me who you are error. So there you go. Now, if you did enjoy that tutorial, why don't you head over to theserverside.com. I'm the editor-in-chief at theserverside.com. We've got lots of great tutorials on Git, on GitHub, on Bitbucket, on GitLab, on DevOps tools in general, plus Java, Python, and the latest programming language named Mojo, which is set to really revolutionize AI and ML. If you want to keep up with the latest developments in software development or get more cool tutorials on Git, why don't you sign up for my newsletter? The link is in the description. And I also run a Discord server that helps people answer questions about Git, helps them learn Mojo, and I work with some people that are familiar with Scrum as well. Darcy DeClude, actually. She's the author of the Scrum Master Guide. She's in there as well. You can see that behind me. If you're into Agile and Scrum, definitely check it out. And of course, I got a couple of books back there as well. So head over to Amazon and buy lots of copies. And of course, if you're watching this on YouTube, I mean, the last thing I'm going to say is, why don't you subscribe on the YouTube?